Who earns 50,000 in this country and you think that a person can truly depend on a salary? Let's not deceive ourselves. It is not possible. How much is house rent? How much is your transport fare to your office and back home? And so we expect a Nigerian worker to earn as low as that and continue to serve this country. Let us stop playing the ostrich. Let's be realistic. Let's carry out our role to provide for the welfare of the citizens of this country by providing living wage for the Nigerian worker. It's really unfortunate when you hear a government talking about minimum wage and shying away from living wage. This House has resolved in the past that there is urgent need for living wage to be considered for Nigerian workers. However, having said so clearly, I will join the mover of the motion to commend the Nigerian workers for shelving the strike in the interim and allowing an opportunity for discussions and reconciliations of these issues. Although we commend them for doing that, I will also use this opportunity to also say that sometimes when we embark on some of these actions, we should not overstep boundaries. The area of switching off power in the entire country as a way of protest should be condemned. It is not proper. It is not opposite. Who are you protecting? People are in the clinic. Some persons, their lives depended on power at that moment, and you switch off the national grid. That was going too far. Whilst you have a good cause, whilst you're on track, you also need to adopt a proper process and procedure in pursuing that cause. So I will urge this House to please, with the speed with which we pass the national anthem, that we should also recall the Minimum Wage Act, reconsider it, and with that same speed, pass that act and ensure that we give the Nigerian worker a living wage in that act. That is the only way we can show solidarity with the Nigerian workers. We have the powers to make laws. Let us make that law. Let us pass it with the speed of light and allow the executive arm to either implement, assent, or refuse to assent. Where the executive arm refuses to assent, I think that will be the first call on this House for us to override Mr. President and ensure that that Minimum Wage Act is passed into law. I will therefore urge us to please support this motion and also add that the Minimum Wage Act should be recalled and reconsidered with the speed of light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I remain Honorable Adedeji Stanley Olajide. I represent Ibadan Northwest, Southwest Federal Constituency of your state. Mr. Speaker, thank you for yielding the floor. Let me echo some of the words of the minority leader. I think we need to take this one step further. I am in alignment with everything he has submitted. We actually have to criminalize the part where we shut down the national grid. Shutting down the national grid is killing the same people we are protecting. The primary job that we have is to protect lives and property. You cannot go under industrial action and kill people legally, because shutting down the national grid, that was just one too many. I'm sure a lot of people died in the past few days of shutting down the national grid. We have to criminalize that. And secondly, Mr. Speaker, and finally, while we are all here, we support so many good initiatives. I think we need to take this. If an average Nigerian cannot buy a bag of rice in a month, and we're talking about 60,000 naira for minimum wage, I think we need to reconsider that position and actually do something that actually brings dignity to Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oboku Abonsizibofoji is my name, representing Nyenegwa Kulukuma Opokuma Federal Constituency. I'm from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the mover of this motion for his patriotism. This motion can only be taken by a pan-Nigerian, and I appreciate him for that. Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the leadership of the National Assembly for their concern that 11-hour meeting with the leadership of Labour. Though it was late, but it's better to be late than never. However, Mr. Speaker, my heart bleeds, rising from the fact that what happened on Monday was quite unfortunate, for the fact that Nigeria were aware that Labour have been raising this issue of national concern. But the government of the day pretended that what happened on Monday, that we are now portioning part of the blame to Labour over the shutting of power. After all, the Labourers can no longer enjoy even the power because it's now meant for the bourgeoisie. Is meant for some person alone in government. Because what are they earning? That they can also enjoy life. So, to me, even the light that was shot, I was in support. The aviation industry that was shot, I was in support. Because that is the situation. When a man can no longer feed his family, what do you expect from that person?
All right, thank you. Let me guide you. Thank you very much. You see,
Mr. Speaker, I want your protection, please, sir.
Okay, round up, so that I can guide you. You know, the parliament must speak in terms in line with the laws.
Mr. Speaker, again, the inflation, why we consider to increase the minimum wage. I think I also want Labour to be sensitive to certain issues in the country. Recall that the last time that the minimum wage...
Okay, round up. We have to give other people opportunity.
Let me learn, Mr. Speaker. I need your protection. The inflation rise up to a particular level. So why we want the minimum wage to be increased, we also expect that we should do it in line with the situation in our economy so that we don't overshoot the inflation. And the government should be very fast to resolve this issue because the 1 week is just tomorrow, so that we don't go into another, we don't postpone the doomsday. Thank you, and God bless all of us.
Thank you. Let me guide members of the parliament.
Oboku Abonsizibofoji is my name, representing Nyenegwa Kulukuma Opokuma Federal Constituency. I'm from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the mover of this motion for his patriotism. This motion can only be taken by a pan-Nigerian, and I appreciate him for that. Mr. Speaker, let me also thank the leadership of the National Assembly for their concern that 11-hour meeting with the leadership of Labour. Though it was late, but it's better to be late than never. However, Mr. Speaker, my heart bleeds, rising from the fact that what happened on Monday was quite unfortunate, for the fact that Nigeria were aware that Labour have been raising this issue of national concern. But the government of the day pretended that what happened on Monday, that we are now portioning part of the blame to Labour over the shutting of power. After all, the Labourers can no longer enjoy even the power because it's now meant for the bourgeoisie. It's meant for some person alone in government. Because what are they earning? That they can also enjoy life. So, to me, even the light that was shot, I was in support. The aviation industry that was shot, I was in support. Because that is the situation. When a man can no longer feed his family, what do you expect from that person?
All right, thank you. Let me guide you. Thank you very much. You see,
Mr. Speaker, I want your protection, please, sir.
Okay, round up, so that I can guide you. You know, the parliament must speak in terms in line with the laws.
Mr. Speaker, again, the inflation, why we consider to increase the minimum wage, I think I also want Labour to be sensitive to certain issues in the country. Recall that the last time that the minimum wage...
Okay, round up. We have to give other people opportunity.
Let me land, Mr. Speaker. I need your protection. The inflation rise up to a particular level. So why we want the minimum wage to be increased, we also expect that we should do it in line with the situation in our economy so that we don't overshoot the inflation. And the government should be very fast to resolve this issue because the 1 week is just tomorrow, so that we don't go into another, we don't postpone the doomsday. Thank you, and God bless all of us.
Thank you. Let me guide members of the parliament. Limitations. Granted, you can strike, but there are limitations. And this you can find in Section 13 of the Trade Union Act T14, Cap T14, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria. This section restricts strikes in essential services deemed vital to public safety and well-being. So when we as Parliament will stay and will say they acted well, even when they acted outside the provisions of our law, I don't think that is where the Parliament will want to align herself. Let me also mention that Section 31, subsection 6 of the Trade Union Act, as amended, prohibits workers and their unions from organizing or participating in strikes if they are engaged in the provision of essential services, which many of you have addressed here. The first schedule to the Trade Dispute Act, as amended, defines essential services broadly, and that includes 1, public service, includes service in a civil capacity in the armed forces and industries connected with the armed forces. 2, supply of electricity. This is our law, supply of electricity, power, water, or fuel. Trade Dispute Act is very clear with regards to the areas they cannot extend their strike into. Number 3, broadcasting and communication services. You can't wake up and say the radios will not work, television shut down. People cannot know what is happening. It's like anarchy. You can't wake up and say maintenance of ports, harbors, docks, airports, and all that transportation means, you are going to strike there. The law also says, number 5, public health services like hospital, sanitation, road cleaning, and fire service. These are essential services that are critical to community well-being, and their disruption is seen as having harmful consequences. So the public interest is more important at all times and should not be interrupted. So this public interest at all times outweighs the right of the workers, because it's not every member of the public that is a public servant. So this is what we must debate. We should look into that when we are, debating this kind of issue, so that we don't go and tell Nigerians that the law says this, but that these people acted, well, even though they acted outside the law. Let us hear from here, all the way from the back. Pastor.
My respected colleagues, once again, my name is Engineer Aderemi Oseni. I represent the good people of Ido Ibarapa Isfera constituency. I want to sincerely appreciate this, the mover of this motion. And having said that, I want to appreciate all the people, my senior colleague and honorable members that have spoken on this issue as well. Few things that we need to address on this issue has to do with our position as an organ of government. We all agreed that Nigerian Labour Congress, they have the right to present their view and their expectation from the executive. But at the same time, just like the issue of switching off the national grid has been totally condemned, I want to, at this point, reflect on a few things that we need to understand as an organ of government while we are contributing, on this matter. The fact that the minimum wage...
Make it brief so that others can contribute.
Yes, minimum wage seems to be very low. It's understandable. But we cannot plan completely for the executive as the people who have control. They have the idea of the amounts they need to spend annually in the budget. As a business leader, we shouldn't use the floor here to look at it as if whatever amount that we need to say it should be adopted or whatever Labour is agitating for. With the issue of pretense, we shouldn't be using inflammatory statements that the executive is pretending as if they were not seeing what the Labour Congress were talking about. I think that is completely shouldn't be discussed at this point in time, with an organ.
All right, thank you.
Like us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's give other people opportunity to.
This motion is a very important motion and very timely. Mine is just to draw the attention of this House that as an institution that is saddled with the responsibility of promulgating laws for the good governance of this country, we should equally play a mediatory role whenever there is dispute between employer and employee. I want to draw our attention to the fact that while we are discussing this very sensitive issue, we should be mindful of the fact that we equally have our limitations. You can neither discuss for or against when negotiations are taking place. Ours as leaders is to advise government to kindly, on behalf of all Nigerians, to do the needful and do it timely. And at the same time, draw the attention of the trade unions that while they are conducting their legitimate functions of negotiating with government on behalf of workers, they should be mindful of the fact that they should be guided by the laws of the land. Where some of them try to cross the boundaries, the laws of the land should call them to order. We have a nation, we have an economy, and it is the responsibility of all of us to always be mindful that you can be in government, you can be a civil servant or a public servant only when the land, when the government and the country exist. So mine is very simple. One, to urge government and labor union to kindly go back to the drawing board and do the right thing within the ambit of the law. Even the war going on in Gaza must aim on a round table. All issues globally are sorted out on a table. But where you are going to embark on a strike, let us please, on behalf of Nigerians who are not civil servants, because where your right ends, somebody's right begins.
Thank you.
It is on this note. I guess I'm protected.
You are protected. No observation in sitting. You come by way of point of order and refer us to that order. But you are protected. Go ahead.
So,
But round up.
I align myself with the fact that we should, as a parliament, hasten in revisiting the issue of the minimum wage, the law guiding minimum wage, and the Trade Union Act, so that we put things in their proper perspective. Going forward, we should avoid areas that people should be crossing their boundaries while doing.
Thank you very much. We've been taking two. We'll come back to do 111. So let's take two here. Kabiru.
This issue is quite timely, and I must commend the mover of this motion. It is a topical issue that is burning in the country and needs to be discussed. First and foremost, I would like to state that you cannot end hardship with more hardship. What the actions of the labor unions has created untold hardships to the Nigerian masses for whom they are fighting a cause to elevate their living standards. There are so many deaths over the last 24 hours due to the lack of power, so many losses in business. A lot has happened. And like the Right Honorable Deputy Speaker stated, there are laws that guide strike actions, and there are areas that cannot be touched during strike actions. And one of such is power, the media houses, among many others. This action is quite inhuman, considering the untold hardship this has caused. However, to the crux of the matter, I believe that the Nigerian worker is in a dire state. I believe that there is need for a better living condition for the Nigerian worker. In a country where the minimum wage is 30,000 and the bag of rice is about 70,000 naira, my dear colleagues, this is in no way justifiable. We cannot keep our heads high and look at this happening. We have an urgent need to intervene as the people's voice to make sure that the executive does the right thing. The living conditions of the Nigerian worker are in a very poor state. Light is expensive, fuel is expensive. People barely eat. People barely eat. Transportation has become something else. Certain workers cannot even, their salary cannot even afford transportation for a week to come to their places of work because where they live is far from their offices. So there's an urgent need, like the motion states, for us to do something as a parliament, to call on the executive to please look at it and look at it with positive light. And I hope this motion passes in this House with the speed of light. Thank you very much. I so submit.
Issue. But the major thing is, the issue is not whether government want to pay or not, but how much are they paying? How much are they paying? I don't know whether we can propose that government should pay about 250,000 as a minimum wage. So the issue is not on, and I blame the leadership too, even in government. But what the leadership and the government did was behaving like somebody who is staying in somebody's house. And you are going to expire on the 31st of every the previous year. Then on the 30th, you now run to your landlord to say, I beg you, I beg you. That's exactly what people did. Because Labour give enough time for them to stop so that this issue can be trashed. But the leadership and even government were dilly-dallying until they pronounced strike. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Jimmy.
This administration stands on 3 tripods. 1, they promised consumer credit. That has been done. If the consumer credit scheme comes into effect, it will ameliorate the efforts of workers. It will mean that workers can be able to purchase goods and services on a mortgage-type arrangement. That bill has been signed into law. Its implementation is coming on stream very soon. The law was passed with the speed of light. Second of all, the student loan bill has come into effect. It is also to ameliorate the stress on workers and on students. The third one, which the government knows that it has to do, is the living wage that we are debating about. With or without pressure from the labor union, the government of the day already knows that Nigerians must earn a living wage. However, what I frown against is the shutting down of essential services as espoused by all the members that have spoken. This has consequences under the Criminal Justice Act. The government has been benevolent in not evoking those consequences. I agree, sir, that arriving at a minimum wage must also take cognizance of the organized private sector. If today we agree that the minimum wage is 70,000 naira per month, 13% of the beneficiaries will be civil servants, both in states and in the federal sector. How are we sure that the organized private sector, who constitutes over 80% of Nigeria's workforce, can afford it? So it is not as easy as sitting down and signing a bill. We need to do proper research. We need to involve the organized private sector. The organized private sector have a lot of SMEs. SMEs are the catalyst for economic growth. So it is not just pressurizing the government to pay 100,000, 500,000. It may be detrimental to the interests of Nigerians in the future. I personally, I always like to propose that minimum wage issue should not be an exclusive list issue. It should be a concurrent list. Some states can even pay higher than the minimum wage. As we speak today, I hear Edo State